going to be good today. Braun and Kratz together. We didn't lift too much this morning so that we could stay, like this close in our shot next to each other. If you lift too much, then, we both get all Michelin Manny.
You just get like...
You know how it is, Trevor.
You get like Trevor after a strikeout. You carry suitcases all the way back to the dugout.
I vaguely remember that, yeah.
Hey, let me ask you, because obviously, Kratz and AJ are old men, but we have some guys that are pretty fresh off the game. You're one of them. Does it feel like a million years ago already that you were pitching on a big league mound, or no?
It's weird. It's like your body feels like it was a million years ago because you don't remember what it's like to be in shape. But also, like, I watch the playoffs and I'm like, I could do that. I miss that. I miss doing that, and it just feels like it was yesterday. So yeah, it's weird. It's a little bit discombobulating for sure.
I could do that. Not a chance. I watch the games now and I'm like, nope, not a chance. I played my alumni game this past weekend. I'm so glad the boys were throwing like mid to upper 80s. Needed it. There was no way I'm getting 95 or some a sweeper down and away. Nope.
No thanks.
Yeah, pitching's easier. I could do it.
All right, so then one more, and then we'll get into ALCS, NLCS, the whole deal. You are back-ish from what I called paternity leave. So, because people were asking about you, they're like, I haven't seen enough Trevor here or anywhere else. I'm like, well, he's a little busy. So happy new dad to you, and congratulations. How you doing?
Good. I don't think it could be going any better, frankly. My wife had one of the fastest labors I've ever heard of. So that was a good sign out of the gate. And happy and healthy, both mom and boy are doing great. So yeah, we're dialed in. Fortunately, we don't have to leave this house very much. So we haven't, but we get some stuff planned. So yeah, best you can ask for. It's the best thing ever, man. When they say your brain changes the moment you see them, it's real. It's definitely real. So I'm on cloud 9 in a lot of different ways. For sure.
We can clip a lot of things. I need you to make sure you say that your wife's labor was awful. She is an absolute legend. There is no such thing as quick labor. One time I made the joke, oh yeah, I heard that lady. She had a baby and it was born in like 30 minutes when she got to the hospital. I was like, oh, she just sneezed and it came out. And every woman in the room was like, oh yeah? Is that what you think? So you try again. Your wife had what type of labor?
It was just super tough, and she's so amazing. She's a legend. Actually, you know what? It was fast, and she's still a legend. It's fast because she's a legend. I'm thinking the other way. I was like, Kate, you crushed that. That was incredible. You're amazing. And she's like, I know that.
I know.
For a very long time.
Get out of my way.
Yeah.
So she's proud of it. So I'm gonna stick with it. You know what?
Good. I like that. Yeah. It's like you pitched in big leagues, but I am legend. Yeah. I pulled this off. Okay.
Yeah.
Shake and bake, baby. That's great. All right. Well, one other thing actually too. So we're going to do at least one watch party, and we've got it figured out now. And we might do one during the World Series as well. We've been doing a ton of post-game shows. We had one right after ALCS yesterday. We'll do more coming up, but I do want to announce tomorrow night during ALCS game 4. The Yankees play the Guardians at 8 o'clock Eastern time. And if you would like to listen to a couple current big leaguers, then here it is. Brent Rooker and Vinny Pasquantino, who have been going back and forth on social media watching games, and people are loving it. Well, we're going to bring it to life. We're going to have an ALCS Game 4 postseason watch party on YouTube, FT YouTube. You see it on Twitter, everywhere else we'll post clips, but join us on YouTube to watch it, and you'll hear from those two. Of course, today, after Game 3, Pinstripe Territory is lit. Go check out that channel, and then same thing with Dodgers Territory after Game 4 between the Mets and the Dodgers. That's the earlier game today. But anyway, ALCS Game 4 watch party. I'm pumped.
If you're going anywhere else for your postseason stuff, I don't understand it. This is you're in the wrong place if you're going anywhere else for your postseason, post-game, in-game now with the watch party. Vinny P and Rook. Whew.
It's gonna be good.
They're going to be fire.
It's going to be good. We'll try and get you guys involved maybe on the next one if this one goes nuts. But nobody is more excited than Vinny P and Brent Rooker to be doing this. I will tell you that. So we're going to bring their tweets to life You've been following some of what they post out there, right, Trevor? How they'll break down an AB, or there was one really good one that went viral about Tarek Skubal. I think it was from Rooker, where he was explaining the little velo pump that he can just do at moment's notice.
Yeah. I wanted to hop in and be like, oh, you know, we had one of those. The guy on the Tigers did it a couple years ago, but you guys are young bucks, I guess. Actually, no. Watching these guys go back and forth, I was like, where were you guys 4 years ago? Well, I would have loved to just banter pitcher versus hitter on Twitter. I felt like I was just yelling into the void a lot. So, but it's awesome to see if those two guys are two of the best. I mean, middle lineup guys in the league, and then also best personalities. So, like, I love that they're leaning into it and having a good time with it. It's a blast.
Same here. Yeah, let them shine, let them cook. And while they're obviously, not in the Final Four here, this is the time to be able to tell everyone what's going on. People want to hear from them.
You get to watch a game. You essentially get to watch a game with Brent Rooker and Vinny Pasquantino.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm really excited about it. So I'll stay out of the way as best as possible. I just want to be point guard. We might have some other FT hosts involved as well, working on all the scheduling. Just let them go, and I'll just, bring in a guest and ask them a fan question, stuff like that. So, all right, let's get to the series right now. We'll start with NLCS. Let's charge the Mound.
He's charging the Mound.
Kratz and I went off for 30 minutes last night on the post-game show, so we'll recycle a few things, yes. But obviously, Trevor, let's start with you and your overall thoughts on what's going down in this NLCS at the moment. The surprise to see the Mets here, and I would say even the surprise to see the Dodgers with a 2-1 lead in the NLCS, given their lack of starting pitching down the stretch. But Walker Buehler has reemerged.
Yeah, which what they needed bad. And just for him, I know I just kind of trying to read I've been watching him pitch quite a bit since he came back this year. Trying to read his body language a little bit, and you could just he looks like he's frustrated like a lot with his body and how things are coming out, and it seems like he's finding a little bit of the old Walker Buehler oomph here at the right time. So, you got to tip the cap to that for him. And he stepped up, him and Jack Flaherty in the series, especially. They needed, a couple good starts out of those guys to save needing to go to the bullpen so much, because they have kind of a bullpen game every other game right now. And they've done that fairly well. It's almost like, when they win, actually, this is true now. When they win, it's a shutout. And if they give up any runs, they tend to not win. So that's something I'm paying attention to. What happens in the first couple innings, and if they fall behind, that kind of is just like, okay, well, this is the day that they're going to drop one. But on the other side, the Mets have been really impressive. I mean, they're not having the same kind of luck with the starting pitching going deep into games. They need a big one out of Quintana, but he is a guy who is known for his ability to get quick outs, keep pitch counts low, and induce weak contact right away, because guys like to swing. You don't see 90 miles an hour anymore. And so when you get a guy who throws not as hard as everybody else, you tend to want to go into go mode. So they're really counting on that. They need 5+ innings, though they haven't had to use so much of the bullpen. They have gotten a lot of innings out of the guys they have used, which is going to make them a little bit less effective if they need to moving forward. So they need a good one out of Quintana, and they got to jump on Yamamoto. It's going to be an interesting day. I think we're going to know how this thing is going to kind of play out, though, by the 5th inning. That is what I'm banking on anyways. That's kind of how it's played out.
I was watching, I don't know if you were watching pitch by pitch, but early on in the Buehler game, in his outing, he was getting swings and misses under his slider. And I was like, I know it's a swing and miss, but it's not. Do you look into that the same way I look into it? Like, I'm looking at it like, oh boy, we got to make sure he finishes this pitch, or we're leaving it off the plate a little bit, because if they're swinging under it, I feel like this could be damaged. Do you see it that way too as a pitcher, or did you see it in the game that way?
A little bit. I did notice that too, and that is usually something you don't want to happen more than a couple times, because sometimes it's just like a fool on, like, they thought it was a curveball and it was a slider, like it just didn't break as much, which I think is what was happening. His curveball is really effective. That big bases loaded strikeout of Lindor on a really good curveball, and that was swung over. So it was weird. The Mets were kind of between the breaking balls, and he hasn't really had that much success he hasn't had that type of success like all year, where they were between the breaks on those two pitches. And I think he just chose right at the right times, and I think they were really compensating for the break or the curveball because of the early swings and misses. He got so many whiffs on it early in the game. The guys were adjusting their swings, and I think that's what got them the swing under. So yes, it's something you notice as a pitcher. You know immediately too, even if you're not a guy who like tracks the ball in out of your hand. You can tell when guys swing under a slider. It's a weird swing, and that could give you pause and maybe make you not stay away from certain pitches that might move into that barrel. But for the most part, I know it was for 4 innings, but for the most part, he was able to avoid that. So the most whiffs he's had in a really long time, and the most in a playoff game in a really long time too. So you can't whiffs are whiffs at the end of the day. You don't have to do it all season. You just got to do it for one game.
And then I want to get your perspective on Dave Roberts and the bullpen usage. And let's still remember that Walker Buehler was an unknown commodity, even though we've known what he's done in the postseason for a while, just based off the down year that he had coming off the second Tommy John surgery. You have Yamamoto coming back. He had to kind of like stretch himself out as he's going through the playoffs. He looked really good last time around. And then, of course, Flaherty is kind of the one in there, the trade deadline acquisition. But let's flip it to the bullpen. So he uses some of the big guns earlier on in this game, Blake Treinen, and even earlier, obviously, with Michael Kopech. What was that, the fourth or the fifth? Fifth, where he used Kopech. And remember, he used Kopech in that bullpen game where they shut down the Padres nice and early. And I thought it was freaking awesome, Trevor. So I'm like, you know what? We so desperately need to win this game. And I have faith in my offense to maybe pour it on later, that I want to carry a lead now and just totally screw with your hitters with a guy that you would usually see in the 8th or 9th innings. What did you think of his maneuvering yesterday?
I loved it. I love the fact that they even have the depth for that is something that not every team has. So those decisions are made easier when you have a guy like Michael Kopech, who you've added halfway through the year and you didn't have all year, and now he's just another weapon. If they had Vesia live right now too, now they got two options, lefty or righty. And so that's just what we saw against San Diego, and that's how they ended up pulling out that series. So, but kind of in the bullpen, historically or lately, there's been kind of different buckets, and we know about the leverage guys. The setup guy and the closer are usually the 8th and 9th inning, and then they call them middle relievers. But in that middle reliever group, you have guys that can throw the 7th, 8th, or 9th, but they pitch in the 6th or the 5th. The firemen, the bridge guys, the guys where the starter's running out of gas, and there's guys in the 2nd, 3rd, and 1 out. You need to go out and get a couple of punch outs to get out of that inning. Michael Kopech is kind of playing that role, and Vogt has been using it on the other side with Cade Smith. So it's he's the guy who throws the 8th inning, but you have to go out and get the swings and misses. Like, that's why I've always loved swings and misses. I always took my pride in the ability to do that, and that's the type of job that I wanted to be available for. And I love that they're just kind of committing to that. The trouble you can get in is if you pull a guy too early who isn't running out of gas and maybe has a little bit more, and then try to go to the firemen when you don't need a fire put out. And I think that's when it tends to backfire, and that's when people start to notice that was a dumb decision. But I think that the way he's doing it with 2-0 lead, it's a perfect time to do it. And you still have the wealth of guys out there in Banda, in Evan Phillips, in Blake Treinen. You still have enough firepower there to get through the end of the game, guys who get their multiples. And they just had an off day, so might as well roll with it. And it paid off big time. And then they just kept adding runs. So then it made his job easier and easier and easier as the day went on.
What's funny too is when you think about legacy and just what people remember, they're not necessarily going to think about Dave Roberts using Kopech earlier than some others might, Treinen, et cetera, when you're pulling a particular pitcher over the course of a postseason. What does everyone always remember? Kevin Cash pulled Blake Snell too early from that World Series game. So that just gets magnified more, because when a guy is clicking like that and then you cut him loose and then you lose the game, like, you're going to get crushed. So not that they necessarily care, but I mean, they're still human beings, Trevor. And I think, Ken Rosenthal wrote about how Dave Roberts was thinking in the back of his head last round about his job status a little bit, just based on how much pressure you have as a Dodger skipper, and that they've only won one World Series during the COVID year, during this entire, dynasty run in the division, but not in the postseason. So just throwing that out there. I also wanted to I'll go to you first, because I don't think we covered this yesterday. Well, we did, but now we know the answer after our post-game show. Remember, we were like, what do they do tomorrow, the Mets? You try and switch anything up with the lineup, or do you go, man,
No.
we won after the 9-0 game, so who cares? Well, after the game, and this was after our post-game show, Mets manager Carlos Mendoza said Francisco Alvarez is playing. He said Yamamoto's got reverse splits, so also expect JD Martinez.
Yep.
Jose Iglesias is going to play, right? So he basically said, yeah, I see your Torrens, Jeff McNeil, and Jesse Winker on the bench, and they're staying there for another game.
I agree with it. I agree with it, especially the Alvarez part. And I get it. We're going to talk about it later with the Yankees and Austin Wells. But this is your guy. He's the 22-year-old captain energy of this team. He's out there in more than just his 4 at-bats. Maybe you pinch hit for him late. I can see that. I'm not against that. But to start the game, I don't think, and this is coming from a backup catcher, you put the guy in there that hasn't gotten you there. Luis Torrens had an awesome year. As soon as when they picked him up, because they were having some issues behind the dish, throwing anybody out, he has been a stable force back there. But to me, he's more than just his 4 at-bats. And I think I agree with it. I think you keep him in there.
Okay, but Trevor, I'll get your thoughts and also throw this out there because I did this with Kratz yesterday in the post-game show. Late in the game, I think it was, the 7th inning? And Alvarez is probably struggling more than anyone in the sport in the postseason right now. Aside from just the numbers, and there's not much there. You see the at-bats, and you're just like, damn, he's not connecting in the zone, and he's chasing. Like, there's just nothing working for him. So I'm like, can I get Jesse Winker to pinch hit late in the game? I think it was the 7th. And then get Torrens to pick up the slack for the last couple innings because I'm getting nothing. I'm being shut out at that time, I think 4-0. So I'd like to see that. Like today, if he's 0 for 3 with a couple Ks and it's the 7th inning and you're down 4-0, can I get a pinch hitter?
Yeah, I think that's the exact that would be the exact move to make, especially with a guy like Jesse Winker. You can pitch in matchups. They only have Banda now, so if he's already thrown right, you have a guaranteed chance of having a right on left matchup. Jesse Winker is great he's done a great job as a pinch hitter all year. So like, there's a lot of things that would line that up, and I think you're right. He's in between everything. Francisco Alvarez is a stud, and he's going to become a true superstar in my opinion. He's just at a down dip right now, so I think you get away, and especially with Torrens and he's a good defender. You're not losing much behind the plate. It's not like you're going to somebody it's just night and day, right? And who's a bat only. And when he comes around, he is just as good a chance to get a hit right now too. So like, I just think that it's not as big of a drop off at the moment. But I also agree with the starting him and getting him out there to continue to work through the plan that they're going to have the whole series. That things aren't going to change in any big way. So he's the one who's dialed in with all the pitchers and is kind of captaining the ship a little bit. And so having that at the beginning of the games, at least with your starter, is really important. So go there, reevaluate later in the game. I think you're right on.
You kind of see it. You kind of see it in the other series too. Austin Hedges has he struck out in big situations. Like, you don't want him to have those at bats late in the game if the game's close. And it's nothing against Austin Hedges, but they're not afraid to go to their pinch hitter. I think they went to Fry for
big spot
for
I
Naylor.
know what you're talking about. Yep.
For Bo Naylor there. And so there's 2 ways of doing it, but then if you have Austin Hedges up at late in the game, veteran dude is catching, there's an argument to be had. Hey, throw him in there. Matthew Boyd is, has done really well, but you're only with Hedgie, but you're only going with one, maybe 2 times through the lineup with Boyd. And then so Hedgie and him go out at the same time. And then you have Bo Naylor at the end of the game. So you sit there and you almost think, are these teams, with the way their catchers are hitting right now, even the Yankees, are they a 3-catcher roster where you never have those guys getting more than 2 at-bats in a game? Just something to think about. I mean, I'm not saying you're going to do it, but the rosters expand. You have one less starter, all that stuff.
I think it's a good idea, Trevor. Should that be considered a little more frequently if you do have struggling catchers? Actually, our friend Mike Petriello, I think, put the numbers up for catchers right now. Here we go. So he said postseason catchers combined so far, I Is this for all of October? This looks right?
Yeah.
231 plate appearances.
Let's make sure we don't invite Mike Petriello on the show anymore. Okay?
Why? Because he loves you so much?
Because you can't just be.
He loves your position.
You can't just be talking about catchers that
Buck
way.
52, 216 on base, 242 slug.
Don't smile, Trevor.
WOBA 208. So it's been a little rough go for the catching department.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of bases loaded situations. Catcher comes up, and we're getting a punch out or a pop up in the infield, and it's one of those things. It's recency bias. We're just like, it's happened a bunch of times now. We're thinking about it and talking about it, but like when a game where you're one hit away at all times, like you got to just make little adjustments and put yourself in the best position to get the job done whenever you can. So maybe it depends on what your options are though for catchers and. Whether or not you can move around and you're not going to hurt your overall, approach to going after hitters and stuff with your pitchers just because you're moving the catcher around so much. So it's interesting. But I think that's just one of those timing things where you just got to make the best decision you can at the time and for the pinch hit and just live with your decision. Kind of like when you maybe, I don't know, intentionally walk Juan Soto to get to Aaron Judge, stuff like that. You just got to go with it. You got to just, we're doing it and live with it.
And that's part of it too. Like let's be honest. Playoffs are all about getting to the spot in the lineup where you can get this out. Whether he's a good hitter or he's not, I know I can make these pitches. And so yes, the bases are loaded. Oh, everyone's excited. But we got to this guy in the lineup. We got to the spot in the lineup where Trevor May matches up really well against Erik Kratz. So this is gonna be a punch out or weak contact. Like that's how you play the playoffs. And runners in scoring position stats are, besides Shohei, are something that are like, it's okay. You can have runners in scoring position because we're getting to the next worst hitter.
Yes, and Shohei is a different story. We'll get to him. Alden González is one of our guests on the list today, so we'll talk to him about this series. But I want to spend some time on Yankees Guardians and see if there's a game plan for Cleveland a roadmap, I should say, to get back involved. So we'll get to that. Lots to cover here, obviously, today. You still got some updates on the Rays with the Trop, the White Sox potentially for sale. So we'll do all of it. We'll be right back on FT.
You said White Sox for sale, not Chris Sale, like actual for sale.
For sale. I know
Not
it's going to be
Chris
hard.
Sale, not
It's going to be
for
hard
Chris
for people
Sale.
to understand.
Yeah.
That's true. So we'll get to that. And I want to let everyone know this episode is presented by HelloFresh. We'll shout out to HelloFresh, HelloFresh.com/freeft. And I'll give you a little more info on what you get by doing that. But first off, shout out to America's #1 meal kit. If you're looking to cook well with fresh, natural ingredients, a little bit of meat, a little bit of fish, whatever you're looking for. If you're vegetarian, they've got you covered. But this is the way you use modern technology to eat better, is you quickly go online on your phone, on your computer, whatever. You pick out your meals for the week. You have the subscription set up. If you don't even feel like picking out your meals, they'll do it for you. If you put in what your preferences are, you're good there. Some people that are extra, I don't want to check anything. I just want it popping up. They've got you covered.
I'm 5 for 5. I've had 5 HelloFresh meals.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying just me because I'll eat anything. I got no standards. But
I do.
My family smacked every one of them. Like they were just like, this is so delicious. Why don't you make this food normally? And I was like, yeah, well, why don't you get your own food? They're like, all right, fine, Chick-fil-A. But like
this is the way to make yourself look
so
good.
If there's 50 meals, I can tell you that 10% of the meals are delicious and my family loves them.
Personal endorsement. He's already done it.
And I'm getting hungry.
Yeah, exactly. I am hungry too. So make sure you check that out. Trevor, I know you've done a little cooking yourself too.
I'm a big fan of HelloFresh as well. I have used it many times in my past, and you are correct. It's so easy. And even if you're like, I've never heard of this, like what this meal is called, and then it's delicious. But I hear you, Kratz. It's when your family's like, hey, why don't you make this? You're like, because who makes aiolis? You know what I mean? Like, who's gonna make They made
Right.
They made this sauce. I don't know what's in it. What are you talking about? So
Yeah.
Yep.
Well
I'm
said.
there.
Exactly. Let them handle it. Okay. So get 10 free meals at HelloFresh.com/freeFT. Applied across 7 boxes. New subscribers only. Varies by plan. That's 10 free HelloFresh meals just by going to HelloFresh.com/FREEFT. All right, let's do a little previewing. Let's look ahead because we've got the off day done for the Yankees and the Guardians, and then this game starts at 5:08 Eastern time. Today's what, Wednesday? No, Thursday. We're already at Thursday. Yeah.
4 hours.
My dad's retired now, and so he doesn't know what day it is. So now it's screwing me up. He just doesn't know. It's like baseball players.
Don't blame
during the
it on
season.
Bob.
I'm blaming Bob. I was with Bob this morning. So, Bob, it's on you. You're the best. All right, so Game 3, do the Guardians have a chance here, Trevor? Like, let's lock in on this specific game where you've got Matt Boyd against Clark Schmidt, because as we know, unless it's 2004 all over again, if you're down 3-0, it's done.
This is the time. You gotta go out and you gotta jump on Clark Schmidt early. He's the same guy, and I believe it's 2022. Cleveland went in. They asked him to close a game. Pressure got to him a little bit. That he hasn't had the most success in that park. So, he knows that going through. We all do. So, if there was ever a time down 2-0 at your home park, you got to go send a message. You got to do it early in this game, and get to their bullpen quickly and make those guys work a little bit. Make them have to go to someone outside of the Clay Holmes, Tommy Kahnle, Weaver group. I think that's their best chance. And then, if they can get Boyd 1.5, like if they get Boyd for 3, maybe 4 innings, just to prevent going to they throw 13 pitchers in 18 innings, the Guardians through the first 2 games. That is too many. So if they can avoid that and only have to go to the boppers with the lead, that would set them up to not only win today, but give them a chance to gain some ground here at home. But they got to do it, or it's 3-0. And like you said, that don't happen very often. Only once, actually, I believe, still to this day. So, I wouldn't count on that. So go make it a 2-1 if you want to stay in this thing.
Yeah, they kind of with taking Tanner Bybee out in the second inning. But why did Tanner Bybee come out? Because he gave up some hits and he had some walks and he wasn't missing barrels. I think Matthew Boyd has the ability to miss barrels. I think he's been very underrated. He had one start against the Yankees earlier in the year, gave up 2 dingers, walked a few too many guys. Tonight's going to be the story of walks. Whoever has the most walks between Clark Schmidt and Matthew Boyd, I get it. One of them is going to pitch a lot deeper into the game or have a lot more pitches to throw in the game. But in my opinion, whoever has the least amount of walks in this game, their team wins, because both lineups are able to capitalize when you give them free outs. And as Clark Schmidt's start earlier this year, he had 7 punchies against this Cleveland lineup who doesn't strike out, but he also had 5 walks. So my guy was just slinging it all around the zone. Matthew Boyd had 4 walks and 2 punch outs in the last time he faced the Yankees. So to me, it's going to come down to walks tonight because it'll give both of those pitchers length.
Do you think so, though? Because I just think there's such a drastic difference between the offenses. Like Cleveland has to, the whole theory of old school saying contact and you got to string hits together, and new school saying no, power wins in the postseason because you can't string hits together, Trevor, is kind of playing out here. The Yankees aren't blowing them away with pop yet. Because if you get guys on, they'll hit a 3-run homer. But my thing is,
the walk is the single.
Yeah, but if there's 2 guys on for Cleveland, I don't think they're necessarily going to string yet another hit together. I know that they're a good contact team, but they haven't been delivering. They haven't been delivering enough with runners in scoring position.
They haven't hit any big home runs in the postseason.
They've hit
against
like
good pitchers.
Obviously, David Fry hit himself a homer, and Lane Thomas hit
himself a homer
twice.
I get it. But I do think there's a difference with the complexion of the offenses. And so
For
But
sure.
the number of
basically,
time, yeah.
yeah, like
absolutely.
Trevor, Cleveland has to work harder to score, if that makes sense. I don't mean it in like the essence of the word, but I mean it in the way we know baseball.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the power is definitely more through the Yankees lineup, and historically this is how these teams are made up. It's no different this year than it has been for the last 20, right? So, they do have the home park. The park factors there will allow for more home runs, but again, that'll affect the Yankees just as much as it affects the Guardians. So, in this matchup, they are definitely depending on their pitching, and the pitching hasn't quite shut down the Yankees offense the way they need it to. So they need some help from the offense. But once there's ducks in the pond, if there's two guys out there, Clark Schmidt, he can get prone to the home run as well. It's not like he's out there and is a mega power guy. He's kind of moving the ball around. So neither one of these guys are like, punching out 250 guys in a year. It's gonna. I think it really is going to come down to a lot of the walks are going to matter a little bit more, but probably you need to avoid walking Yankees more than the other way because of their ability to hit a home run at any given time. So I kind of agree with both of you. It sounds like a soft stance, but I think you both have good points. But I do think the walks are going to be a big deal, especially with 2-0. Like, Boyd's going to feel that pressure. We have to win today. Like, there's no, like, we have to, and I can't walk guys at all. Schmidt can get away with it a little bit more because of the lineup he's facing and because they're up 2-0.
What do you think about this lineup rumor? We don't have lineups yet. It's a little early.
It should be coming out soon. I mean, I think 2.5 hours. So during the show, the lineup will come out because they have to have them in.
No, are they the early or the late? Now I'm confusing
They're the early
myself. Right.
This is the only time the Yankees have ever been chosen as the early game.
I even said it already, and I'm still so programmed to be like,
Yeah.
what? The Yankees at 5 o'clock?
Yeah.
But yes, the Yankees are playing at 5. The Mets and Dodgers have the late game. Yankees will play the late game tomorrow. So here was Michael K saying he heard from his sources. Good chance Giancarlo is 4th, and then Trevino catches over Austin Wells. Which obviously you can bring in Wells.
The G part, G hitting 4th, I don't hate. I don't hate that. I like that added aspect, almost like doubling down on the home run that Judgy just hit. Like, okay, he got to one. He got to an elite fastball that I think 137 right-handed batters did not hit a home run on, or one home run on the whole year, and he hit one. So I think you're doubling down by pushing all those guys to that part of the lineup because of what Glaber's doing, Little G, what he's doing, because of what Verdugo and Rizzo did 8-9 in that bottom of the order. Putting Trevino in is not bad. I mean, he has some history. He's walked 3 times against him. Like, he sees him well, I guess. And the Yankees need somebody that can hit left-handed pitching. I know if they would move G up to the four hole, G has not, this team is 389, I think, is their slug against left-handed pitchers this year. So if Trevino adds a little bit extra there, he's going to be ready to go. And you know what? He's a magician behind the dish. He is a magician behind the dish.
What about this, though?
Yep, I get it. He can't throw right now, and I think that's why they're trying to save him. But I just think he's a good start. And when we just looked at Austin Hedges not starting or starting, he is an upgrade over Austin Hedges back there. Like, we're talking about an all-star.
But I mean,
from last year.
Wait, Hedges or Wells? You're saying?
No. Talking about Trevino starting over Austin Wells. We had talked about Hedges starting over Bo Naylor.
Okay, gotcha.
Before.
Yes.
And so I like the move if it gets them more thump against lefties.
Okay. You good with that, Trevor?
Yeah. I agree. I think he's going to get an AB or 2, and then there will be a little bit of a line change because we have Birdie out there as well. They don't handle lefty pitching very well. The least you can do is not load your lineup with all of your lefties at the beginning too. So I think that Wells just kind of fits into that group. But I don't be surprised as soon as maybe if Boyd, and then maybe if they go to Heron or have to early, then they just try to just make them have to use Zabrowski or something later and just bring in Rizzo, bring in Wells, because they already got Jazz out there. So you don't want 5 guys in the back of the lineup to be left-handed. So I think that's kind of what's the play. But I think that we will see that in the middle. I think Trevino's a great defensive catcher, and also he's got a playoff experience as well. Wells is a rookie. So I just don't think you're losing a lot. And Wells isn't necessarily tearing the cover off the ball either. So I think it's a nice luxury for them to have. It doesn't surprise me as much as maybe it's surprising other people.
Yeah, remember Wells got hit on the hand somewhere in mid-September, late September. Oh, that's what they were pointing to.
You're always getting hit. When he started to decline?
Yeah,
he was on the show, and we were talking about Rookie of the Year stuff.
He was flying. Yeah,
that's the beauty and the curse of being a catcher.
Yeah, you get beat up.
Oh, I got hit by a foul tip. Oh, what is it? Tuesday?
Right.
I got hit by foul tips in the alumni game just the other day. You're like, why am I not athletic? Why can't I just have no friends and be a pitcher? There's plenty of other positions where you're not getting hit by foul tips. Oh, did you hear that, Trevor?
Yeah, you're not allowed to say stuff like that when I'm drinking, man. Jeez.
That was good. All right, well, here, let's do this because we're going to step aside. But, the Yankees lineup is out now. So it's Giancarlo in the cleanup spot. Oh, there we go. And then Jazz. And then John Birdie back at first base.
That's interesting to me. Especially after Rizzo had.
Yeah, but isn't Rizzo just coming in?
He'll come in.
Once Boyd's out?
Totally.
Right. So it's 2-3
gotta have
innings.
one stash in the lineup, guys. It's a rule. You have to have one.
Have one what?
One stash in the lineup. One mustache. You have to. John Birdie.
so because Wells came out, they were like, Birdie, you're up.
Birdie it now.
Yeah, Yankees postseason requirement. That's true. And yes, Trevino's in there, batting 9th. All right, good little preview there. Let's get to some other news around the league when we come back, because then Alden González is going to join us soon to go back to the NLCS talk. But where are the Rays going to play next year? We have some options that could be emerging. Getting some fan questions in here. Andy, and we can maybe ask this to Alden González too. He said, does LA re-sign Walker Buehler? I don't know. I mean, Walker is most likely going to sign either a shorter term deal or a deal that has an opt-out, because he's going to want to say, give me a full season to work with coming off the second Tommy John. So it's tough to say. Trevor froze for a sec, which is actually great because he kind of gave you the face that I would make if someone asked me if Buehler is re-signing with LA. I'm like, it's not a Soto situation where you're like, all right, this dude's about to pick his next decade. Walker Buehler's essentially, hopefully, picking his next 1 year. Yes. That's really all that's happening. Sure, maybe he gets 2 or something out of it, right? No, not even. I'm saying 2 just because you get the opt out after the free. Like if your agent's sly and he says, hey, let me get you 1 and a hook, so that just in case you've got a little extra guarantee, a little extra insurance. I don't know. But
are we able to pick guys who we think are going to get qualifying offers that most people don't think after this next season, after the 2025 season? He could come back and be that guy that could get a qualifying offer after next season. He gets like a 1-year deal. He gets a 1 and a hook, and obviously can't pick up the hook. And all of a sudden, he's going to get extended that qualifying offer because he could be $100 million pitcher for, a 5-year deal after next season. Because of some of the numbers, you look at some of the numbers, what he did from 18 to 22, it's obnoxious. He was like 4th in ERA, like 3rd in WHIP. Like, he was a guy
on the path to be one of the top starters in the game, 10, something like that, and he already has dominated in the postseason in the biggest spots. To me, it's not a direct comp, Trevor, but you had Mad Bum do his thing with the Giants at one point. I felt that with Buehler. Obviously different stuff and all. I felt like that intensity in that, like, oh, that's who you want. Playoff game, we're good. And actually, he even showed that yesterday when his stuff is not at its best yet.
Yeah. I think he's got a great chance. I mean, they have a history of kind of re-signing their guys too. Like, they just keep I understand Kershaw's track record is a lot longer. But he's just going to keep being offered until he's, a step out of the grave, I think. So I wouldn't see it, especially with a reclamation project, which I think he qualifies for. It could be a 1-year deal or a 1 year with the hook, I think. And then, that would set you up certain teams for the QO, which they love giving. So,
No, you're good.
yeah.
Let's go in the weeds because we need to find new grass for the Rays. We talked about it yesterday. I know that the video, what we do.
What a play on words by you.
I mean,
it's not real grass, bro. It's turf.
They might play on real grass.
It's wet turf now. But
yeah, it is wet turf, and it's wet turf without drainage. So you can't play there. I mean, that place needed to get retired a long time ago. So obviously you don't want your roof to get blown off, but we'll continue the storyline from yesterday. Got a lot of pub on YouTube and socials yesterday. So there's been multiple articles written. I'll refer to one from Front Office Sports about possible places where the Rays could end up, whether it's the beginning of the season or total. I'm still not totally understanding. Like they're not going to be ready to play at the start of the year, which is March 27th. But I'm like, are they going to spend $150 million to get the new roof? Like, I don't know. That's what's getting talked about behind the scenes right now, Trevor, because I know the Rays don't want to foot that bill. It doesn't sound like it's insured the way it should be, and that it would take forever. And they've got a new park coming in a few years. So this could end up being a little more of a permanent spot. We might have Sacramento on the West Coast and something like Dunedin on the East Coast. So 4 places that were put out in this article were Port Charlotte, which is the Rays spring training home. And you've got Orlando, where ESPN's got their whole complex, but that place gets used up a ton. They make a lot of money on that place with all kinds of youth tournaments. Probably a tough spot to have permanently, even though the city could probably support them pretty well for a little bit. I'm biased. I live there. TD Ballpark in Dunedin for the Blue Jays home. And then Miami, where the Marlins are, does not seem realistic to me at all. I mean, you're completely relocating people. You have to split that ballpark. The schedule's already out. I would cross that one off. But what do you think, dude? If you're a Rays player, first off, what do you think? And then as just a media guy, what's going to happen?
The fact that there might be 2 like stopgap smaller parks in the league, both in the AL too. So like all of the AL is like, Jesus, we don't want to like have to go to these, out in the middle of nowhere. I'll throw this out there though. Can you come up with some agreement for Buffalo? They already upgraded the place. It's already big enough and it's already kind of close to major league ready. Obviously this would there'd be some compensation left, right, and center, but at least you're close to your division too. You don't have to go all the way up to New York as much anymore. You're closer to all the other teams you have to play all the time. So like that would work out a little bit better. But yeah, this is not ideal for the players and the people that work for the organization. It's funny. 6 months ago, if you said, hey, would you miss the Trop? You're like, no. But if there's a situation where you don't know what's happening and, this is really bad timing. You don't want to replace that terrible roof anyways. You're already moving. So finding a stopgap for not just spring training in like a couple months of the season or whatever, having to do it for possibly for 3 or 4 years. I'm not envious of having to figure that out. But I don't know why Dunedin's thrown out here all the time. The place is tiny. If it seats like 48 people, and it's just in the middle of a neighborhood, there's nowhere to park. That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know how that would be possible. I would say Clearwater over that. But of course, if you're already going to try to boot out a Blue Jays franchise, or not franchise, but minor league affiliate, do Buffalo.
Except Buffalo in April sucks.
True.
It does.
Buffalo in April is cold, May, freezing. Either way, I like both of those places. I hope they don't spend the 9 figures. We don't know how many 9 figures it is. If it's 100,000, 100 million, 200 million. I hope they don't. I feel like that is such a waste of money on something you're going to tear down. And I don't know what the insurance stuff is. So to me, find a place for these 3 years. Don't make it one of these places.
Well, what's the place?
Montreal. Figure out Montreal They can get back on. Hey, it's kind of like you're buying a new car. You know what? Hey, we're going down on vacation. We're going to rent a car. Let's get one of these. I think we might get these. We own it for a week. It's ours. We drive it like we stole it. And hey, you know what? Everybody really liked Montreal. All of a sudden now you have some bidders. Montreal's back in the mix. Nashville we'll get to in a little bit. Like, to me, if I'm Montreal, I'm like, oh, parlez-vous français de l'exploitation, mon chéri.
You might have to work for the Montreal Rays if we go there, dude.
They don't pay me enough.
Somebody said Ratatouille. I think that's great. I think Montreal would be like, come on, they might be able to get them bought in. I think at the end of the day, getting the city you go to bought in to help you out with some of the things that need to happen. They would love it. And Canada's like, 2 teams, let's go. And everyone loves Montreal. Anyone who played when Montreal was a team was like, Montreal is one of the best places to go. So, I mean, I don't know why they loved it.
There's already a connection there too.
It's Montreal, okay? Montreal. You can't Montreal, man.
I'm saying the same thing.
Montreal.
Yeah. Montreal. I'm American. That's how. I mean, I'm. Here's the deal. I'll say it in your fancy way if it actually happens. Otherwise, we're only saying it a few times. But there is a connection there. Remember, the Rays did try and at least throw out to the public their plan for a 50-50 split, how they'd play. And Kratz was amazing on that, actually.
Oh, yeah, Trevor. When we were together.
Epic.
That's right.
Kratz did his audition with me for TV at MLB back in the day, and we were on for that, and he was just ripping it. It was so good, too. And I was like, that was like the moment. Yeah, but that was the aha moment. Like, it was part of the Foul Territory Foundation where I was like, oh, this guy is so real. I never hear people talk like this. Right? Because usually everyone's just like, you're used to old school TV and they're just like, well, that would be swell and that would be a good opportunity for them. And Kratz is like, do you know how screwed up that would be for the players right now? And I was just like, no, please tell me you're the player. And we and we're not on TV right now. This is an audition. And then after it, I was like, oh, this guy's real. So anyway, this is different. This would be full-time. So your feelings would change.
100%.
Yeah, you're just there.
City. You're there. Trevor would love to go and play for Montreal. He would love it. Baby, wife, everybody would go.
Wait, what's that? Say that.
I told you that. My retirement.
She's not watching the show. She's taking a nap right now.
No, I'm not going. But I think they would love it. So good luck, guys.
All right, cool. Well, I like that. That was a good chat. And yeah, we'll continue to put news out there about this, obviously on TV, but also I know people are super interested on YouTube and on socials. So we'll keep covering it. We'll get back to the NLCS up next. ESPN's Alden González joining FT to talk about tonight. All right, questions coming in. We see you, YouTube chat, and we're here for you. Nicholas says, this question's for Trevor. Do you see pitching deployment going in the direction of 6 or 7 man rotations and a higher emphasis for long relievers that can go 3 to 4 innings to get you through the 162? And just so you know, obviously we're on YouTube for these, 2.5 minutes. So I'll let Trevor take it away for 2 minutes here. And when you see the music, the awards music playing you out, you can still finish the thought, but then it'll take us back into TV.
Got it. It's been a while. My fault, guys.
You're good.
So I am seeing an adjustment, moving a little bit that way. Like the whole, the pitching chaos, term we gave the Tigers. I'm like, it's just an opener. They're just bullpen games. These have existed. And the reason that they're not, we're not doing it like that, because the season is so long and up downs, like getting up to warm up, and then going and pitching and then sitting down and getting cold and warming up again. That is kind of what a lot of fatigue is being attached to, and injuries are being attached to. It's not the number of pitches as much or bulk of work. It's the pitches under duress, and it's the up downs. So when you're creating more of those, we're just going to see more injuries. It's just going to happen. That said, too, there's no off days in the season. There's only 12 all year. So those are days, and off days off days are great. The guys don't have to go and throw or whatever. That's great. The biggest thing about an off day is they don't have to think about how they're going to go get somebody out that day. A pitcher isn't going to. So, like the relievers, we allowed our off days because I didn't have to worry about the phone ringing that day. I got a day off from the phone. And now when we're saying, hey, guys, everyone's up every single day for 162, that's going to create even more fatigue than there already is, mental and physical. And that's why I'm kind of against it. It's just it could be a snowball that if you put yourself in that position, you can't go back. Like you can't go back to getting 5 guys stretched out again. You're kind of stuck there, and then you got to figure it out as you go. So making the readjustment back, getting a guy to eat some innings, it's just so important for giving that bullpen a break. And if you're just saying we're never going to do that all year, that is going to take a toll, I think, that we've never seen before. And we see it in the playoffs when people run out of gas. They're all pitching every day. It's just so much stress. So I think that's the danger. A guy who does a great job with this, that keeps getting jobs, is Jordan Lyles, because he goes and he throws 7 to 9 innings a few times a year, and bullpens need that. You need those guys. So I think that it'll be slow if it happens, but I like it.
Yep, good call. Here we go. ESPN's Alden González joining us right now on FT. You've got Kratz, you've got me, you got Trevor. How you doing, Alden? You having fun covering the series?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I'm actually I'm at home. So this is like the 3-day stretch I had at home. I've been traveling throughout. I'll be at the World Series, but I'm watching the games in New York from my couch, which is a nice change.
Well, you're Mr. California, right? Like I try and explain,
that's what everybody calls me.
Yeah, you're like Mr. West Coast, right? If there's something going on big in the West Coast, you got it covered. Is that how you'd explain? Like
I try.
You'll be on the scene for anything big with obviously Ohtani, a lot of coverage this year, and I read everything you've got out there. But yeah, tell everyone what you've been up to.
Yeah, you said it. I mean, usually I'm around the Dodgers a lot because they're good. I spent a lot of time in San Diego when they're good. When Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani were there. In Anaheim, I was there a lot. Not much reason to go to Anaheim these days. I cover a little bit of everything, but I am very lucky to live in Southern California where a lot is going on in my backyard. So I don't have to get on planes all the time. So that's been good.
I love that. All right. So it looks like there's a decent chance you could have half the World Series games in Los Angeles. What are your observations of the series so far? And being someone that's been around the Dodgers all season long, and you look up now and you see where they're at, is this surprising to you? And I only say that because they've taken on, at least some of them, a little bit of this us against the world mentality. Other people laugh about it because they're like, you spent $1 billion+ this offseason. And even though you did take quite a hit to your starting rotation, you're still the Dodgers. You still have Ohtani, Mookie, Freddie running through the top of the lineup.
Right. I think some of that was warranted because of the starting pitcher injuries that they suffered, like you mentioned. Am I surprised that they're here? I am surprised that they're here only in the sense that I thought the Padres were a better team. I thought the Padres were a more complete team. I thought they were clicking on all cylinders going into the playoffs. And I think there was a sense around the Dodgers that if we can get through the Padres, who might be the best team we face in October, then not a sure thing that we're winning a championship, but our road to a championship gets a lot more clear. So getting through that, overcoming a 2-1 deficit, especially the way they did, to bullpen a game in Game 4 to save their season and then come back home in Game 5 and win that. I think that was a major triumph for this team. And I think that's why you started to see sort of that mantra come out. The players started to spill out a little bit in terms of how they were feeling, in terms of an us against the world mentality. I do think that helped them. And my thoughts through these first 3 games is the Dodgers are getting what they need from their starting pitching. And that was the big question for them. I mean, I heard Trevor May talk earlier about just how you can't quasi bullpen your way through a season. He's absolutely right. It's hard to quasi bullpen your way through a best of 7 series. And so that Jack Flaherty gave them 7 innings. Forget that it was 7 shutout innings, but just that he gave them 7 innings in Game 1. I can't tell you how big that was for that team. That Walker Buehler was able to navigate twice through that Mets lineup, and though he faced a lot of traffic, he was not giving up any runs. I mean, that's huge. It's going to be huge to see what Yamamoto could give them now in Game 4. Hitting is so hard in the playoffs, and I heard a lot of people talk about the Dodgers coming in that, look, they could just hit their way out of this, right? Like they're just going to have to outslug teams. Good luck doing that in October in a consistent stretch. At some point, you need guys to take down innings. If you want to free up your bullpen to stage these bullpen games, which the Dodgers are going to have to do in a game 6 or a game 7 if it gets there, they need length. They need effective starting pitching. The fact that they've been able to get that so far from Jack Flaherty and Walker Buehler is huge for them.
I want to follow up on what you said about the Padres and that you thought they were the most complete team. What happened? I mean, we know they got shut out. Their offense didn't show up for those last couple games. But is there anything else to it? Like, did you observe anything going on there in terms of, how there was so much beef within the series, the fans, and, obviously they had this us against the world thing going too? Or is it just simply they lost out to good pitching and they just didn't hit for 2 days?
They went 24 straight innings without scoring a run. Sometimes, like, as much as we want to psychoanalyze these things, it can be that simple. But it's so surprising to see them go through something like that, because this was supposed to be an offense that was built to not go through stretches like this, right? Like, what were the Padres better at than any team in baseball throughout the season? And it was putting the ball in play. And that was the type of skill set that's supposed to translate into October. It's slump proof, right? It's about as slump proof as you can get. They still had some slug with Tatis, with Machado, with Jackson Merrill sometimes, but they were such a good situational hitting team. As opposed to the year before, when their offense was more talented, they were a lot better in high leverage spots with runners in scoring position. And that's why I thought so highly of them going into the playoffs. Look, their bullpen was deep. They had their starting pitching, even without Joe Musgrove. I mean, the way that Michael King and Yu Darvish were throwing the ball, even Martin Perez were throwing the ball, like, there were reasons to feel really good about that. But that was an offense that was not supposed to go through spurts like this. And I mean, look, give credit to the Dodgers. I haven't verified this, but I think I saw a stat that, like, I don't think that Fernando Tatis Jr. saw the same pitcher twice during that 24-inning stretch. That's huge, right? But for the Padres offense to fall flat the way it did, given how they were built, that was stunning to me. Stunning.
Okay. So what about the Mets? You see this team obviously carry all kinds of, what do you call it? Gimmicks?
Gimmicks.
Yeah. But
what are the gimmicks?
Gimmicks, Grimace, OMG, Pete's
Yeah.
Pumpkin. Actually,
Love it.
even yesterday I didn't realize
Timmy trumpets coming out to, like, play the actual trumpets.
Mhm.
Like,
even
there's a lot of stuff. A lot going on.
You see
Got
they
a lot
all
going
wear
on.
the number of the starter.
That's more like for the boys. Like,
No,
like
I know that. But have you seen that?
I love that.
No, I've never seen.
I've never seen that
I
before.
love it. I
Me neither.
agree. And somebody's writing it on each other's face. They're not doing it themselves in the mirror, and, like, it's fun.
If someone took a video of them all doing it, like, in the clubhouse, that would go. That would get a lot of views. That would be quite entertaining. But anyway, my point is I love it. I think it's great. I think it's great for the sport. It's cool. And my point is, I mean, they're winning. They've gotten this far, and they bounced back from game 1. So what do you think about what the Mets have put together this year? And I'll kind of couple it with this question, because we asked this to Ken Rosenthal the other day too. Steve Cohen wants to be the Dodgers of the East. Do you see that starting to formulate?
I do, because they have – the way you become the Dodgers of the East is you have the capability to spend a lot of money to get star players when you need it, but you also have that steady pipeline of homegrown talent coming through your system. And that's one of the things that Steve Cohen talked about even initially when he purchased that team. And so, I mean, look, to see some of that show up in this series, Mark Vientos, Luis Angel Acuna, like, those are the type of guys that need to keep coming through, right? So you keep those guys coming through your system, you spend at the top end, right? And you make smart investments, right? We saw it already in this series, Sean Manaea, Luis Severino. Those were some of the best offseason moves that we saw. And it's so difficult to just hit on starting pitching, especially in free agency. And, they did that. And that's a big reason why they're here. I'm impressed with the Mets. I really am. They're a lot better than I thought they were going into the NLCS. I think they match up pretty well with the Dodgers. I think they have a slight, or at least I thought going into the series that they had a slight starting pitcher advantage. It's been great to see the way that Sean Manaea has transformed the season. Obviously, that changes a lot if Kodai Senga is not right. And they have a big decision to make for Game 5. The big thing with them is they need to clean it up on defense and on the bases. And that was the kind of thing that was part of their identity early on. And then when they started to get going, it seemed as if they tightened up in those areas. And we've seen the bad side of that show up already through the first 3 games. Game 1, Jesse Winker got deked by Kike Hernandez in center field, some of the worst base running I've ever seen. Game 2, they almost blew it in the 6th inning. Jose Iglesias fumbled a double play ball. Pete Alonso couldn't corral a 2-run single. It didn't cost them, but it could have. And we saw it early in game 3. Francisco Alvarez throwing to second base, didn't make an accurate throw. A couple of comebackers to Luis Severino that he couldn't get. And if I'm being picky here, maybe I am, but these are the types of things that show up in the playoffs. These are the types of things that make a difference in a game. And I know the Dodgers ran away from it late, but at that point, it was a close game. And that got them runs in that inning. And they just need to tighten up there. But I think from a talent perspective, given how banged up the Dodgers are in their rotation, given the fact that Freddie Freeman can barely walk, I think they match up pretty well. And I think they're obviously like very much in this series. They got 2 more home games. I'd like to see them clean it up with the fundamentals.
What are we missing? What are we missing as the East Coast, West Coast bias stuff? You know, you're Mr. California. I feel like there's somebody that's boots on the ground like you. What are we missing out here on the East Coast that, like, if this would have happened to the Yankees, the Orioles, the Red Sox, the Phillies, that we're missing out here on the East Coast because it's such a regional sport. It's even like a coastal sport where football doesn't have that stuff. So what are we missing?
In terms of something going on with the Dodgers, I would say, I think, and I don't know if this is what you're looking for, but this is the first thing that jumped to my mind when you mentioned this. I think a player like Tommy Edman goes underappreciated. He was just a throw-in at the deadline. It was a 3-team trade. I think the Dodgers just sort of snuck in there, if I remember this correctly, and they were able to get Tommy Edman from the Cardinals. The Dodgers have been wanting Tommy Edman for like the last 3 years because he could play center field and shortstop at a high level, and he gives them a skill set that they were lacking in that offense. A guy that consistently puts the ball in play. We've seen him already like try to sack bunt a bunch. He's a good bunter, right? He's a good situational hitter. I think he's been the Dodgers' best hitter this postseason. He's played some center field. Now that Miguel Rojas is out, he is playing shortstop. He's played it not great, but he's played it just fine. And I heard from a couple of people on different teams when they got him going into October that was the player that not scares them the most because obviously they have Ohtani and Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman. But like when they got him, they got really worried because now you have a guy like that hitting at the bottom of your lineup who could keep the offense going, who could pass the baton, as they say. And he's been a huge asset for them. He's something that lineup was missing that now they have. Erik, I don't know if you're looking for something else, but that was the first thing that jumped to my mind.
No, that's great.
I agree wholeheartedly. And yes, I am here. Look at me. I'm on the screen now. I agree wholeheartedly with the Edman thing. I think they have that kind of lineup where you add a guy like that and he gets overlooked, and you can't overlook a guy like Tommy Edman because he can kill you. That's the type of thing the Dodgers do so well. Speaking to kind of take it back, just one question about the fundamentals and when these mistakes kind of become pivot points in a game. So we see the 2 games the Dodgers have won where the game was still close. Shohei Ohtani came and provided that dagger with a 3-run home run yesterday. And a homer in the first game, I believe, too. So he keeps putting the game out of reach. They've been careful-ish with him, but with runners in scoring position, the guy's been Shohei Ohtani. Do you think moving forward that it would be the best situation is just to take the bat completely out of that guy's hand, so at least you can keep the game close, so they can maybe work some of their Mets magic that they've done the whole postseason and come back one of these games?
You mean, Trevor, like just completely like always pitching around him, like Barry Bonds treatment, nobody on base?
Unless there's nobody on base. Don't let him be the guy that puts it out of reach for you.
I could see a case for that, depending on the matchup, right? Because I think there are some pitchers throughout the playoffs that have clearly given Ohtani problems. Like, he never looked comfortable facing Sean Manaea. And I get it. Like, it's crossfire, sort of. It looks like the ball's coming out of first base if you're a left-handed hitter, I'm sure. So he didn't look comfortable against Tanner Scott, who was basically acquired to face him in October. Yu Darvish, for some reason, gave him some real big problems. Didn't throw him a fastball, I don't think, at all. But outside of those matchups, yeah, Trevor, I agree with you. I mean, look, Freddie Freeman has still been an effective hitter. He clearly can't hit for any power right now, all right? He's just, which he does as well, and to his credit, like this is his skill set, but he's just spraying balls. He can't slug. Mookie Betts has been very up and down in these playoffs. Teoscar Hernandez is having a rough go of it. And I agree. Like, if the matchup is not in your favor with Shohei Ohtani, yeah, I'm treating him like Barry Bonds. If you have a good left-hander who can match up with him, I don't know that Jose Quintana is one of those guys. Yeah, make other people beat you. I will say that Max Muncy's looked really good, and he's going to continue to hit higher up in the order, especially against right-handed pitching. So I'd be wary about somebody like Max Muncy, who's had some really good at-bats and looks good. But no, yeah, if the matchup is not in my favor, I am not giving Ohtani a lot to hit. That's obvious. And look, and here's the thing. We've seen some of this, and maybe some of this is just going through the playoffs for the first time. And this is just me, but I think the reason why you see the differential with bases empty versus with men on base is I think he has a tendency to expand when nobody's on. And maybe some of that is just sort of putting some pressure on himself, thinking he's got to be the guy. But we've seen him expand with bases empty, and he's not seeing strikes. And so use that to your advantage, right? And with guys on, yeah, be incredibly careful.
I would say he guesses with nobody on. With the bases empty, it looks like he guesses more. But I agree, yeah. He expands, and that's part of guessing. Obviously, we can look at what Ohtani's been doing. We can look at his numbers. He's going to win the MVP. From you seeing him last year, what is a non-baseball thing that you're seeing different in Ohtani this year from last year? Whether it's emotion, whether it's just a willingness to actually talk, because he never really spoke last year with the
not this year either. Not this year either.
Oh, not this year either. Okay,
not really.
So that hasn't changed.
No.
What's a big difference from Shohei Angels to Shohei Dodgers?
It's the emotion, and it's not so much different. I saw the emotion spill out sometimes, right? And I think the interesting thing about Ohtani, I covered him during the World Baseball Classic. I covered him a lot when he was with the Angels. When the stakes get high, you see that emotion come out, and it's such a cool thing. Like, go back and watch his first home run from game 1 of the DS, right? I think it was second at bat. And the way he threw the bat, the way he kind of like sauntered a little bit before getting to first base, like, I've never seen that level of emotion from him. But just like seeing him get animated in those moments, like seeing the footage of him spill out of the dugout when the Dodgers won game 5 of the NLDS. Like, this has been said a little bit about Ohtani, but the problem is that, like, we don't really have as much access to him. So we don't really know him the way we do other players. And I'm not saying we know any player intimately, but like, we know more about them, what makes him tick. We don't know a ton about what makes Ohtani tick. And the one thing that's been said always about him is that he wants to win. He longs to win. And anytime he's been any semi-transparent, he's voiced that. When he met with the Dodgers this offseason, when he met with their ownership group, their front office, one thing he talked about is he wants to win. And to see that actually manifest itself in his emotions spilling out the way it has these playoffs has been so much fun. Because it's almost as if he has like this pent-up sort of aggression that, like, it's not just that he didn't make the playoffs with the Angels. He never played a September game that mattered. He spent 6 years in Anaheim, not one September game that mattered. Forget October, September. So I think he longs for this. I think just how good he got, because if you remember at the beginning of the year, the talk about Ohtani was that he's not coming through with runners in scoring position, right? And now that's flipped. And to see how good he was in those situations for the stretch run in September, when the Dodgers were being chased in the National League West and they needed to win games to separate from the Padres and Diamondbacks, to see the game he had, and I was there that night when he got to 50-50 in Miami, and just like one of the greatest games that's ever been played, to get to 50-50, but also to clinch a playoff spot for the Dodgers. And just to see him show that swagger, show that emotion, which in Japanese baseball is kind of frowned upon, that's been very cool. And to me, it's indicative of a guy that wants this, that wants to be in this stage. And I got a little taste of that last March in the World Baseball Classic. And to see it for a prolonged stretch has been a lot of fun.
And I always try and look at it from a global perspective, huge for our sport. You need the best players in your sport to be playing in the postseason. I know I say this for the FT fans that listen to us every day, but Alden, I mean, we had Mike Trout for many years. I know he's gone through it, the injuries the last few years, but many years looking like the best player in the sport and the Mickey Mantle of our generation. Never got to see him in the playoffs besides the little Royals 5 seconds early on in his career. Like, that doesn't happen in basketball ever. You never get the top player in basketball just not playing in the playoffs for a decade. That hurts. That hurts a lot. And that's our competition, grabbing young fans like that. So I'm with you. Yeah, getting Ohtani in the playoffs right now is awesome. And getting him in his prime still too, right? Like, if it had been another 5 years and then you got, an older Ohtani, maybe not as good, like, that sucks. So I'm with you. I'm glad you mentioned that. Great to have you on, dude. Appreciate the time. Keep doing your thing. Everyone give Alden a follow if you don't already, at Alden_González. We'll post some of these clips afterward, and enjoy the rest of the series. We'll catch up soon, okay?
Yeah, should be fun. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Yeah, thank you. Alden González with us on FT. He's awesome. And he's been on this show before too, or I think so, on Dodgers territory. Yeah, and he's been on with Lana on Fair territory as well. Alden's great. I've known him for a while. Used to do some interviews with him back on one of my old shows that I've hosted. He's really good. Great personality. Dodgers territory, part of the FT network. Check out the show later today. And the show will be on post Mets Dodgers as well. They've been great. Alana and Clint are hilarious, by the way. You got a little comic relief there too.
I almost want the Dodgers to lose one game because I love how mad Clint gets. It's so great.
They just drop such good one-liners. And happy birthday, Clint. All right, so it's the playoffs. It can get difficult to bring on players. Trevor, so you weren't on with us yesterday, but Max Muncy came on the show. And I always remember last year, for example, Paul Sewald was on the show. We get guys, but not often because, the schedule's tight. Guys get tight. They don't want to do as much. Totally get it, right? Like, we get players on every day during the season. It makes sense. We're super appreciative of it. Last year, Sewald comes on the show after the Diamondbacks are down 2-0. And there were some trolls that were losing their mind about it. How is he coming on? He should be focusing. He shouldn't be talking about strategy. And obviously, we dispelled all of that as much as possible. And then the karma hits and they win the series. So Paul's like, sorry, I'm a nice guy. I'm not going to change what I do during the season, which is coming on the show every few weeks or whatever. Max does the same thing. He's pretty superstitious. He got on base 5 times yesterday.
3 walks, single, dinger.
Yeah. So just wanted to point that out, that sometimes, just doing your normal life and then doing it in the playoffs, actually, not saying we contributed to anything, but we definitely didn't hurt. That's what I want to point out.
Love it. I love it. Do what you do, guys. Don't change. Sitting in your hotel room and be like, I hope everything goes well tonight, doesn't make it easier. Surprise.
Right. I think it's cool. This is true in general, right? Like, if you're on an abandoned island because your plane blew up or something, you're by yourself. Like, it's not good for that was a little drastic. Yeah. But basically, my point is, for your mental health, it's good to be with others and talk to people and all of that. So Max sitting in a hotel room stewing, right, instead of 15 minutes on FT, not going to make a difference in his life. And if anything, could be like, oh, cool, that was a fun combo with the guys, just like catching up with some ball players plus the annoying host who makes weird references.
And he was like, there were some older guys talking about, if I ran a team playoffs, there wouldn't be any families involved. It would just be if families want to come to the games, they can come. And it's like, you are so locked in during the playoffs that a moment to have reprieve. I know I wasn't a good dad or a good husband during the playoffs, because I was locked in, but you get an opportunity to kind of take yourself out of that moment. Because as soon as you go to the field, you're in it. So to me, everybody should come on FT, especially if you get on base 5 times. Just saying.
1,000%. And if anyone ever said, hey guys, no one's allowed to talk to anybody right now, I'd be like, guess what? You are my employer. So I'm going to do whatever I want when I'm not at the field. You dork. That's what I would do.
You dork.
Hot corner. Let's sizzle. So we love pranks and we love when they're brought to light. So Trevor reacted to this. We'll show it first, right? And then we can.
Do we love pranks?
We can respond. People like pranks. No?
Okay. Not the person getting pranked. I'm just saying.
Sometimes.
Just
Depends
put it
what
out
the
there.
prank is. How hard do you go? But here's Anthony Rizzo on a prank little phone call to the bullpen.
Try to keep it as loose as I can because I know every time the phone rings, it becomes a little bit heart pounding, especially when Rizzo calls in the fourth inning like he always does.
He's calling in the fourth inning? What's he saying?
I don't know, but I have to yell at him after every game and stop playing on the phone. But yeah, he likes to play on the bullpen phone.
What is Harkey doing an interview for?
He was amazing. Was amazing.
Harkey is amazing.
Say who he is so people know, because people don't know every coach on every
bullpen
team.
Bullpen coach for the Yankees for years. He was on the Diamondbacks staff for a minute, then he came back. Huh. Harkey is the heart and soul of that bullpen.
Mm-hmm.
But exactly how he said it, he was like, I got to yell at him after every game. Harkey comes on before every, like he's one of the guys, but he does a great job of getting those boys ready down there.
I can imagine Trevor, like it's fourth inning, Cole's like dealing, say, and you get the ring, and you're like, what the?
Yeah, no. Every single guy goes and grabs their pullover, and it's like, me, him, no. So yeah, Tony out here. I call him Tony. I love that. I love guys named Tony. That's just terrible, especially in the playoffs, man. Dude, even the closer's like me, and he hasn't had to do that all year. So that's just terrible. But it sounds like Arky's got a little, like they call and he's like, hey, idiot, and like hangs up. But like I had Eddie Guardado at the bullpen. He would have went along with it. It would have like even after he hung up, he'd have been like, oh, okay. Oh, and then we're gonna do this. Oh, okay. And then he would like look at us all. And they'd be like, oh, it was just Rizzo. Like he would play it out for a minute just to give us all heart attacks. So at least they have a cool bullpen coach to kind of put them at ease a little bit. Man, that would. Oh God, the number of guys sitting there just like biting their nails and like looking at their hands silently out there, it's like a graveyard. So for that to happen, I still think of the stupid sound that phone makes to this day, and it's been a year. So. Oh God, Aaron Loop could make that sound perfectly, and he'd do it.
That's who I tried to learn it from, Loopy.
Oh, so good, and he'd sit in the back of the room and do it too. He'd like get up, go to the bathroom. Right when he came out, he'd do it. Everyone look around. It's awful, but
it was that good. He could do it like where you think the phone's ringing. Oh my!
Yeah. Yes, man of many talents, Aaron Loop.
Wow.
Especially when you're inside. When you're inside, it reverberates, and you don't know. Like, was that the phone outside? With me?
Yeah.
You, Trevor. When that phone would ring and it wasn't you, your heart was racing. Did you ever feel like that took away from some of your ability to throw? Like, oh, I'm so exhausted now. Okay.
Yeah. There's something to that, getting up and then having to get it back up. The worst part is like, I remember I had an outing. I think Edwin Diaz came in and he like we kind of surprised us. They brought him in the 8th and he had to kind of throw a lot of pitches, but he got out of the inning. And then I was warming up like as I was going to close, and we didn't know if he was going to go back out or not. So I'm warming fully up, and then I get sat down because they're like, he's going back out. I'm like, great. I sit down, I get cold, and then he starts to struggle a little bit. So I'm like, I started to warm up again. I was like, oh no, this is bad. But for the most part, especially like last year when I was with the A's and I knew I was closing for the most time, the phone would ring and I just looked down and be like, who is it? It ain't me.
Jerk.
And I just will be like, hey, get up, man. I'll see you later. Have fun.
It's not mine. I got a free pass to the 9th inning, guys. You guys wear it.
This time, the first 9 years, though, it was me. So
They saved your heart. At your age, they had to save your heart. A little bit of drama.
Well, in the playoffs, things get crazy. You could get that call at a very weird time in the game.
Different. This is what I just talked about, talking with your family. It's different. Trevor's going down in the first inning.
Yeah, throw down first.
But he's not going down. I would assume you're not going down in the first during the regular season if you're the closer. The last year. So you're watching the game inside. You're making sure everyone else gets all their stuff done. Playoffs, some teams would bring in an extra masseuse, an extra trainer, because everybody needs to get their arm ready to go out. So they need to get that extra treatment I mean, they're out there quick. If you're the visiting team, you're going out there when after you guys make it 3 outs, but you're going out together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's good. That's cool. All right, so more inside baseball talk tomorrow too. Obviously, we do this every day on FT, but just shouting this out one more time as we're past the midway point of the show. We've got the watch party tomorrow with Brent Rooker and Vinny Pasquantino. It's making the rounds on social right now. So Brent gave us the classic come hang out, and Vinny P dropped a Friday night. See you there, Brent. Also, I think it was Vinny saying, hey, you should follow me last night to Brent because they were going back and forth. He was like, oh yeah, I'll follow you back. Sorry, my bad. Didn't see that. And actually, I'll vouch for that too on Twitter these days. You can just continuously get at everyone's post without actually following them. So that was cool though. And some people were like, oh, that's how it works. They'll just follow you. And they're like, yeah, you have to be a big leaguer though. Otherwise, they're not just going to follow anyone. But anyway, here's the sick graphic actually. Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern time, ALCS Game 4. We're on for the entire game. Vinny P, Brent Rooker, and more. I'm hearing current active player guests could be swinging by.
I'm excited. It starts at 8. I'm tuning in from the mountains.
There you go. Yeah, you better find a way to get yourself some service. All right, we're going to talk to Jon Greenberg next, who's plugged into the scene in Chicago. And you're like, Chicago? Yeah, the White Sox could be for sale. So we need to dive into that news that Brittany Giroli broke yesterday. And we will do that for the White Sox contingent next. All right, finally, we get to this little viewership tweet from Bill Shaken, who covers the Dodgers and West Coast ball for the LA Times for years. He said, viewers for Game 5 of Dodgers-Padres, NLDS, which was Yamamoto against Darvish and Ohtani, right? It's probably the biggest regular season game in the history of Japanese baseball fandom because you've got 3 guys in that one game. Or no, what did I say? Regular season, postseason, sorry. So in USA, 7.5 million watching. In Japan, much smaller country in terms of how many people live in it, 12.9 million people. Super Bowl level numbers.
The final game of WBC where Japan played, Team Samurai played USA, they had 95% viewership. 95% of the households viewed part of that WBC game.
That is wild.
So if you think they're spending or they're not going to be able to get their $700 million back from paying Shohei, there you go. Trevor just said it. They're good.
But then my question is, why didn't more teams at least get involved? I mean, maybe, behind the scenes, we didn't get much, just like Ohtani doesn't give you much. I mean, his agent didn't give us much either. But I mean, shouldn't every team be calling like, I'll do 800 million deferred? I mean, obviously there's a limit for everyone, but I mean, I do think the return on investment is going to be high. What's the theory?
I have a theory that Shohei Ohtani wanted to go to the Dodgers, guys, and he was kind of trying to make it happen. And you want to tell a bunch of teams because then you got to make your decision harder, and that's not fun. Another fun fact actually about the WBC, and I don't believe it was this last year, but in recent years, the viewership of the Japan-Korea game had similar percentage of households to where at breaks, and this might be a myth, but I choose to believe that it's true, that everyone went to the bathroom at the same time, and so the water pressure in the country dropped a lot at the same time because everyone's flushing their toilets at the same time because everyone was watching the same game. That's crazy.
I want that to be true, but I also want somebody in our chat that knows something about plumbing more than us 3 idiots. I want to know if that's true.
You measure that.
Right, like everybody's water pressure is just down. You have to double flush. That would be tremendous if that was true.
Wow, that's next level analysis you only get on FT.
Here.
All right, back with our next guest, Jon Greenberg, founding editor, senior columnist at The Athletic, plugged into the Chicago sports scene, and John, great to have you on. I mean, I don't know if you expected to be on our show during this time of year, being that the White Sox are maybe the worst team ever, and the Cubs certainly didn't make fans excited this season. But here we are. Thanks for coming on. And first off, are the White Sox about to get sold and turn this franchise around?
Well, I find it interesting that AJ Pierzynski's not here. Maybe he's rallying, potential investors. I heard he's in Italy. Maybe he's meeting with Mike Piazza, and he's
got
buying
short arms, John. He's got short arms. He's not letting. He needs other people to pay for it, but he'll get behind it and cheer him.
He's got a big Rolodex though, like he
Paul
says.
Konerko.
Maybe he's
Paul Konerko. That's his buddy. He's got a Hawk Harrelson. You say he had a 6,000 square foot house in Scottsdale, or a 10,000 square foot house in Scottsdale. So maybe PK's buying it. Let AJ run it, and then that's great for the media because we could talk to AJ every day.
That would be awesome. Oh my gosh, if AJ owned a team, that would be next level. It would change the way we look at ownership in sports. I will go that far. But do you think this is going to happen? And what was your reaction when you first found out about this news? Obviously, Jerry's getting up there in age, and I'm sure there are a million components behind the scenes going on here, including the fact that I think they've tried to poke the city to get money for yet another new ballpark, and they've given him the Heisman so far.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the big deal. Jerry, for the last year, has been working on this stadium idea, the idea of getting money, and it's money from the state, which they got to build Guaranteed Rate Field, originally called Comiskey Park 2, back in the late 80s, early 90s, opened in 91. So that's been Jerry's big push. And it's not working because it's a different world than it was in like 1989, and people aren't as receptive to the idea of public money for a stadium, especially for a stadium that's not that bad. I mean, it could be better, but it's not awful. It's not crumbling. It's not the Coliseum. So that hasn't worked. All right. The team went from 101 losses, which Jerry said was the worst year ever for him, to 121 losses, which is the worst year ever, since the Cleveland Spiders. So that's not going great. The team is not making money. I've heard they're losing money, although it's, tough to get the actual financials. And the fact that, their RSN deal ended this year, and Jerry's a partner with the Blackhawks in a new RSN that's having, its own issues getting carriage in the city. So to me, this seems like the perfect time for him to get out. He's always said the team will sell when he passes away. Jerry's 88 years old. I think he's probably starting to look at it a little bit and saying, well, why don't I just help get this sold to the right people now? And here we are with Britt's story. And when Britt told me she was working on it, I was, surprised, but not shocked, because it does make sense.
Now, I'm very interested in how this story has played out, because very recently I read another Brittany story titled from September 19th, titled "An Owner Who Thinks He Knows Everything Led to the White Sox to a Historic Disaster." And there was a very interesting quote that Jerry Reinsdorf had in this. I'll give it to you right now. Friends of mine have asked, why don't you just sell? Why don't you get out? Reinsdorf said last year, my answer has always been, I like what I'm doing, as bad as it is, and what else would I do? I'm a boring guy, and I want to make it better before I go. This was less than a month ago. Okay, so
yeah. Well, that quote's from last year. Okay, so it's from last year. So
yeah.
He's repeated it, I guess, but he said it last year.
So has there been any specific things that have happened recently that have maybe locked in this isn't going to happen? Possibly, like, has he gotten more news about whether or not he's going to get a stadium? Has the RSN thing been gotten worse, or he's less likely to make anything happen? Anything big that we don't know about, possibly, that might have changed his mind in a big way this fast?
Yeah, not in the past month, but in the past year, absolutely. And, I was talking to someone who's kind of affiliated with the ownership world in sports in Chicago, and they said they heard rumblings that Jerry was looking to get out when he went to Springfield in February. That's downstate Illinois, where the state capital is, to talk to legislators and kind of take the temperature about, state money for a new stadium. And it failed. And people said that's when, maybe they got maybe a change in tenor from Jerry, or there was just rumors going around the, the wealthier people, wealthier than us, about how Jerry is feeling. I've heard there's been some poking around about people, Jerry and his family, to people that are current investors with the team, seeing if they wanted to level up. So I do think everything you've talked about is kind of come to a head. The team being terrible, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. He's not getting another title like they thought they were during the Rick Hahn rebuild that he could really enjoy before his ownership's done. So I think it's kind of makes logical sense for him to kind of get out. Last year when he fired Kenny Williams, to me, that was a shocker because Kenny had been his guy for, 2 decades. And to let go of Kenny, it kind of made me think, well, who's Jerry, watching games with now? Who does he want to engage with in baseball besides, obviously Tony La Russa? So that's kind of where I think the change has come a little bit.
How many levels of uncertainty does Dave Stewart bring to this equation? If his group that he has formed wants to look into buying the White Sox, because it doesn't just become then, if I'm not mistaken, it doesn't just become, oh, well, he's going to own the team in Chicago because he's been connected with the Nashville group. Is there a chance that with him coming in here that we start talking about possibly the White Sox moving to Nashville?
Yeah, I mean, because that came up last year because Jerry was spotted leaving the mayor's office. And now I would assume that someone in Jerry's orbit tipped off a reporter that he was leaving the Nashville mayor's office. Because I don't think people in Nashville just look around. They're not looking for country singers and Jerry Reinsdorf spottings, right? So I think that was probably the setup there. But I do think this gives more more realistic option and more realistic leverage if Dave Stewart and his group were the primary owners or even minority owners of the team, that, yeah, they could move to Nashville because they actually have the connections and they have the interest where Jerry really wouldn't, So I do think that gives them more leverage. I also think it'd be foolish to say just because Dave Stewart, wants to buy the team that he's automatically moving them to Nashville or somewhere else. Because I think Chicago is still, the third largest market, even though they share it with the Cubs and the Cubs have, dominance in the market. They still have a great fan base. Everything's set up here. It would make more sense for them to stay. But with this new ballpark they're trying to build, and the new ballpark they're trying to build, I should add, it's a little farther north than where they are now. It's in the South Loop, and it's in an area that developers are trying to make like a new neighborhood. It's along the river. I've stopped there and seen like they had their groundskeeper build a park there so they could show investors what it would look like. And they had the usual White Sox cast of characters like Harold Baines and Ozzie Guillen, and them give kind of like a presentation, and talk about what a ballpark would look like in this area. So the question has always been who pays for it. Jerry said, you pay for it. And now maybe, in the States, like, no. So we'll see if they can find someone to pay for this ballpark, no matter who owns the team.
Well, and that's the thing, John. I think that's the big business battle that goes on that at least, half the stewards in our sport are most obsessed with. You have some that are like, yo, I want to win games. Let's have a time. We're going to make money anyway. And then you have half going, if you're getting a new ballpark, you need to make the city pay for a good chunk of it. Otherwise, when I've got to go get my renovation or my new ballpark, they're going to have leverage against me, right? We know that game goes on across the sport, and that when you have John Fisher actually departing from Oakland, the rest of the cheap, annoying ones go crazy because they've got leverage to say, hey, look, this is real. I know I'm saying this, but this is real. So what do you think is going to happen there? Because I'm with you. I mean, I've been to that ballpark many times. Like, it's a nice ballpark itself. Is it in the best location? No, obviously. And the way that owners are looking at baseball nowadays is this is a real estate deal. What can I own all around it? And that place, I don't know what the deal is there, but there's nothing around there. So it doesn't look like it's going to suddenly turn into this lucrative neighborhood. So how much do you think this has to do with the business of the sport? Because that even goes into who owns the team next. Because I think for White Sox fans, like, a lot of what we're getting into is nitty gritty. They just want to know, are we going to have an owner that's going to be more like Steve Cohen and the Dodgers owners, right? Name the good ones, like how Peter Seidler was with the Padres, whatever. Yeah, or am I getting the next Polad? Am I getting the next Fisher, the next Nutting? Like, it's very obvious. Our sport's the one where people know who the owners are for good and bad reasons.
Yeah, and Jerry, most of all, because he was so active in the labor, the strike in '94 that basically crippled his own franchise, which was looking fantastic back then. So yeah, I mean, I would love to see like a Mark Cuban type, right, in Chicago. Like, Cuban was rumored to buy the Cubs. He had interest in the Cubs when they were sold, and supposedly Jerry helped put the kibosh on that because he didn't like dealing with Cuban from the NBA. So it would be interesting. I don't know too much about this Dave Stewart group because I haven't paid too much attention in the national expansion. So I don't know what kind of owners they would be. I will say I talked to someone in Chicago who has enough money to seriously consider buying the White Sox and is interested. And he once told me he didn't think they needed a new ballpark. He said that he really thought they just needed to fix up the area around it. It's surrounded by parking lots, which is kind of an old school way to do it instead of a neighborhood. So, you redevelop some of that area. There actually is decent stuff in that area. Next time you come in, I'll take you on a tour of the South Side in Bridgeport, because there's actually some really good restaurants. There's a great store called Grandstand down the street on 35th, 2-second walk from the stadium. It's just the White Sox have never done a good job of integrating themselves into the neighborhood, into the fabric of that community, and trying to make it better. And that's kind of the Jerry Reinsdorf ownership in a nutshell to me, because I feel like he had these opportunities to do dynamic things, and he just doesn't have it in him. It goes back to the creation of that ballpark in general. We had a great Ken Rosenthal wrote a very good obituary on Larry Lucchino when he passed away, and the lead of it was him telling Ken that when they build their new stadium in Baltimore, it was going to be much, much better than the White Sox because they did a terrible job, building New Comiskey Park. And sure enough, Camden Yards became what every other ballpark wanted to be. So I think missed opportunities is a hidden kind of part of Jerry's legacy here.
Yeah, you're right. I think it was Travis Sawchik, who's been on our show, who wrote a great article about how the White Sox ballpark was just built so poorly in so many ways. And you do, right? You do have to look at, who was behind all of that, because there are humans that made decisions, right? Yeah. Oh my gosh, look at what the White Sox have done within that park. And again, structurally it's sound, it's fine, but Camden Yards is a freaking gem. It still is, and it's been like that for decades. So it's a good call. I did have one other question for you, John, before you jump, and you might not have necessarily the answer, but I just was curious. When we were reading through this, it looks like Jerry is the majority owner, of course, but he only owns 19% of the team. When I heard that, I was like, that sounds insanely low based on how at least some of the other teams I know are constructed with their ownership percentages. So do you know anything about that? I mean, obviously there must be a ton of other owners, and for him to be majority, obviously nobody's above 20.
Yeah, I don't know. And actually, I don't know if he's actually the majority right now. I think he was the controlling partner, right? So he's one of those guys that didn't put a lot of his own money in, but got the group together and he took control, and they let him take, kind of control of it. It was him and a guy named Eddie Einhorn back in 1981. They were the guys in charge. I feel like someone else might've been the majority there. I have it written down somewhere. But here's the thing. Jerry had said before in an interview that no one knows his true percentage. Now, was he bluffing and trying to be a little coy, or is that true? So I think he probably owns more than 19%. That's what Forbes has estimated. They're not always correct. I do know this for a fact. In 2021, his two sons, Michael, who runs the Bulls as the COO, which, Jerry's group, a different Jerry group owns that, the Bulls, and his other son, Jonathan, started buying up minority shares of partners that have been around. And these guys have been around since 1981, and women. And they started buying up people that wanted to leave, the people that were really old and wanted to get their estates settled. And they were offering a very low valuation, according to a friend of mine whose dad is a minority owner. And so some people said, no way, I'm not doing this. And some people said, yeah, you know what? We need the cash, whatever. We're still making a profit. So the Reinsdorf family definitely owns more than that 19%. I'll say that. So either way, when this thing is sold, they'll be doing pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I wasn't worried about that. I know they definitely kept their money tight, as many of these owners do. And also that plays to what you're saying. You don't build up the area. It costs money to build up the area. You're going to make it back if you believe in it, but not everyone's just going to give you free passes for everything. I mean, newsflash, if you've got a big restaurant, the city's not supporting it for you like they support the ballpark, even if it draws people in. So, I mean, that's the beauty of our sport and how it works, the good and the bad. This is fascinating. Obviously, there's going to be more to it. So thanks for hopping on to give us some insight. People wanted it. And we'll catch you, I'm sure, down the road, hopefully to celebrate a sale.
Yeah. Either when we'll talk about either AJ getting the ownership or maybe the manager job or the GM job, something. Get rid of him for you guys. I know you guys.
Hey, that's fine. We're going to be quizzing him as soon as he's back next week. We're quizzing him. We're doing the interview.
Can't even have days off.
No.
AJ can't even have days
as soon as you go, the team's for sale. I love that. That's baseball. You leave for 5 seconds and things happen. So 100%. Thank you, John. Appreciate you.
Thanks, guys.
See ya. Jon Greenberg. You can follow him at Jon_Greenberg on Twitter, and check out the articles he's put together, obviously, on the Chicago sports scene in The Athletic. couple super chat shout outs. Charlie Moore, baseball coverage getting way better in the past couple of years. FT leading the way. Appreciate you, Charlie. Ref, who's always dropping them super chats and talks a lot about the White Sox. Said he's not selling. No effing way. Thoughts? Well, like John mentioned and like Jerry mentioned, he did say he's selling, after the team or after he passes someday, that he doesn't want it to stay within the family. I actually heard Mark Cuban recently on a podcast. I think it was with Shaq, and he was asking him why he chose to sell. And among other reasons, one of the big ones he did say was, my kids are getting a little older, and then the pressure starts to come on. He doesn't even want it to be a thought in their head. We've seen families duke it out. The Angelos family suing each other, screwing it up. Almost every next generation screws it up. There's more pressure on them because the one who actually made the money is usually the smarter one and the more successful one than the next one down. It just happens to work out that way. Polak. So anyway, Trevor, just with all of that being said, I actually do believe this. I do think that he might want to see it all get done while he's here, see that big paycheck come in, and then say, family, you're good. Not good. Obviously, they're always good, but I'm saying you're not involved with this anymore. We moved it on to the next group.
I respect that a little bit. Not like, hey, you carry on my legacy and you have to do it exactly the way that I did it. You have to do the things that I liked, or the way that I did it. So you have to live up to my legacy. I've seen all of Succession, so I know how this can be, right? Because that's a historically accurate show, and it's just so silly. Like all the owners are so funny, and I don't know. It's just all a game, like this money game. They're living different lives than all of us, and trying to hide, how much you own of things and being coy. I'm like, who cares, man? Like, I understand it's for other billionaires. You're trying to leverage this somehow, but we don't care how much of the team you own. It's just, it's weird. It's like going back to high school lunchrooms sometimes, that I just shake my head and be like, I'm glad I'm not in that world. But, I hope we get somebody who is excited to shake it up a little bit and change things around, because they need it.
That's all I root for. I just want good people who care in our sport. It's simple. The bar has been set super low by some and super high by others. So that's all I root for. We covered Minnesota a lot. We will more once they actually get sold, but same thing. When you read the skit that they pulled off for years two, it makes you even more angry.
Yeah.
BetMGM locks. I hit yesterday, barely. Late in the game, I get the text from Kratz. Then it's real. But
Max
8-0. And Max, of all people, hitting the dinger to get to the 8. I felt pretty good about that number, because I just think both offenses are strong, and I was like, one, if not both, will explode. But then when the Mets don't do anything, and obviously they had opportunities, this easily should have been a 3-game or something like that. So anyway, that's what happens there. You went with the over, but also had the Bueller K's, and he was punching tickets.
He still only got 6. I mean, it wasn't like he didn't punch out 9.
I know, but he was coming off 0.
Right.
In the was it 0 or 1?
0.
0 in the previous. So Pap is struggle city right now, 0-6. But it's okay. It's okay.
Trevor,
right.
He's in a dark place too. He usually brings some fire, some heat from Chuck E. Cheese, from a tool shed, from anywhere, from a remote island. He's just like, guys,
trying
I'm
everything.
going opposite of what I think.
He made the mistake. The mistake he made, Trevor, was exactly what I said you can't do. He was like, I'm going to go opposite of my pick, but he did a parlay. I'm like, just do opposite of one pick. Keep it simple.
Can't get emotional, Pap.
Yes.
He's emotional.
One pick. He's like, I think it's going to be low scoring, so I'm going to go high. But then he added another pick to it, and I'm like, no, just the over.
No, he's in full. I got to make up for it. That's the mood he's in now. So it's just going to get crazier and crazier.
Pat's getting a new nickname, but I'm not allowed to say it on the show right now.
Okay, that's fair. Well, all right, Trevor, you lead the way because it's your first postseason pick.
Oh, what did I even pick? It's right here.
I can tell you if you need a hint.
You were listening to our post game, because this is exactly what I said on our post game yesterday. I love it.
I did. I believe it's first 5 innings, less than 3.5. Under on 3.5 runs.
2.5.
2.5. Yes, under 2.5.
Why? Why do you think we won't have 3 runs by the 5th?
I don't know.
Stop.
I just need the plus 200, boys. Just because it's been garbage time. The higher scoring one, like all the runs a lot of runs are being scored at the end of the game in the last, I think, 6th through 9th inning, just because one team's kind of been in the driver's seat. So I'm anticipating it going the same way. You know how it works. So it's just going to be completely different, I'm sure. But I'm not going to pull a pap. I'm going to stick with it.
Yeah, you stick with what you've got. Yeah, because I was on a little rut. I lost 3 or 4 in a row, and now I've picked it up. And I was starting to second guess and just like talk myself into both sides. And I'm like, oh, I don't even know what to pick. But yeah, you just got to stick with what you know and what you think. So I'll go to the early game, ALCS. I got the Yanks money line over Cleveland. I mean, I know that the pressure's on Cleveland, but when it's minus 115, we're close to even money here. I just think there's too much value to not take the Yanks. I mean, there's enough of a bullpen there. And I just think the offensive advantage is going to continue to play out. So there's too much for me to be able to say, all right, 2 are on and Judge hits a homer or Giancarlo hits a homer. Like there's too many guys there. So it was too close. If it was Yanks minus even 130 or whatever, I'm not touching it. But minus 115 got into my sweet spot.
That's even money. I take an even money with Matthew Boyd over 3.5 Ks. I'm taking him. He's going 2 times through the lineup. I think he should be more. He has had a great season. 9 out of his 10 starts this year, he has gone over 4 strikeouts. His one start, guess who was against? The Yankees. But Judge and Soto hit 2 Yankee Stadium home runs that were, first row Johns.
Really,
like,
both?
Both of them.
Wow.
Both of them.
Of
And I
that.
think the punch outs are there. So I think this is an easy hit. For me, I rarely give a 4-star vote, so I'm not going to give it. I don't have it with my. I don't say it with my chest, but I also think they're going to push Boyd a little bit more than they would say in an elimination game. I know it's winner take all. You know, this is a must-win game, but I think he has done enough and proven enough in the postseason.
Okay, so I'm just doing 115 to win a hundo on this one. You're just doing 105.
105 to win 100.
And Trevor 100 to win 200. Nice and simple. Okay.
We let it go.
Yes.
All right.
All right, let's see. And hey, if you want a little extra on your home run prop, then you know what to do at BetMGM bullpen jackpot. $10 or more on your choice of a player to hit a home run. That's a home run prop. And if that player hits a home run into an MLB team bullpen, there is some strategy involved here. You win a share of a daily $50,000 BetMGM bullpen jackpot paid out in bonus bets that expire in 7 days. Did you think of anyone today?
Stephen Kwan.
What?
Stephen Kwan. He's going to throw that slider. Clark Schmidt's going to throw that slider coming back into Stephen Kwan, who has been absolutely ripping the ball. He hasn't elevated and celebrated yet, but I'm seeing Stephen Kwan. I don't love it that he's not going to be able to reach the bullpen because I don't know if it bounces and then goes into the bullpen, if it counts or not.
It counts.
It counts?
Don't quote me, okay, any of these legal people out there, but I'm pretty sure it counts.
That's a good call. That front bullpen is a good call. If there's a lot of flat surfaces for it to bounce off, happens a lot.
Esteban Kwan. So if you're sitting in front of the bullpen, if you're in the bleachers in front of the bullpen, let that ball get in there. Yeah. Let the boys get 50,000 K.
Yeah.
Need them bonus bets. Need them.
Thank you. All right, gambling problem or concern, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Be right back on FT. Slap hands, final thoughts before the big day of balls. Good pregame show today.
You want people to see you as like, dude, I got some tons of skills. Like, who cares how tall I am?
Right. I think a little bit of both. I think just kind of growing up with the showcase circuit and all this stuff, it's like I kind of got knocked on my height a little bit. Like everybody asked me like, oh, like what events did you go to? And like, how'd you get drafted in the first round? I was like, I went to one event and that was Area Code. I went to Area Code for 3 years in a row. And that's kind of like the only event I got invited to. I played really well in those events, but I think just it was almost I had one scout tell me that if I was 6 foot, I would be a top 10 pick, whatever. I mean, Not that it matters really, but it was just like, oh, like why couldn't I be that if I was right now? It's like, oh, I guess you're not as physical as a guy that would be 6'2" or whatnot. So it's, you kind of always get those little comments in your head, and it's like, well, I mean, who cares how tall I am, and just who cares if they can hit the ball harder? It's just, I think just kind of playing the game. I think that's always how I've played. Just a little bit of chip on my shoulder of just kind of going out there and showing people, hey, that doesn't really matter about your height, and kind of just going out there and play. Just at the end of the day, you have to have fun. But I think that for me, it's like I said, seeing those guys that are shorter, like they're playing, if not as good or better than some of the big guys. I loved Dustin Pedroia growing up, and just because he was a smaller guy. I love Mookie Betts, Bregman, and Altuve, just because they're also the smaller guys. Even though that Mookie's playing against our team right now, it's kind of hard not to root for him. But for this series, I'm not going to root for him. And but no, I think just kind of looking at those guys, and they're on the smaller side, and they're putting up amazing numbers each year, and just kind of the work that they put into it. And it was cool just getting to talk to Altuve and Bregman one day, and after I got drafted, and because my hitting coach is from Venezuela, and he's good friends with Altuve, so I got to talk to him a little bit. And then Bregman just DM'd me on Instagram after I got drafted and told me congratulations. And then I met him in spring training, so really nice guy, and just kind of seeing the way they work and the way they go about their business, I think it helps me just being able to stay focused and just like, hey, if they can do it, I can do it.
Let's lap 5-minute warning. First off, just a little news. We get the surgeries postseason. So Luis Ariz announced the little thumb surgery. We knew that was coming. He'd been banged up for a while now. So, he was only, hitting 320 or something this season instead of 340 or whatever. Dude,
Brutal.
it's crazy fun to watch. But so today, I had surgery on my thumb, pushing through an injured half of the season. Despite the pain, continued to play. Became clear surgery was necessary to fully recover. Procedure went smoothly. I'm focused on healing and getting back. Get well soon. One of my favorite players in the sport, Trevor. I remember talking to Rocco Baldelli about him early on in his career in the bigs. And he was like, I'm telling you, what you see out there is a different game. The way that he plays is differently. And like the game that he plays at the plate is different because he was born with a gift to make contact on anything. So when you really focus, and he had other more smart words than I did, but it's cool. Like it's cool to have a guy like this at the plate.
He had more smart words, did he?
Smarter, more smart.
There you go. We got it. Yeah, he. I've had Luis Ariz. I was able to interview him for the All-Star game last season, and he likened hitting to ping pong. And I'd never heard anyone talk about hitting a baseball like he's just kind of flicking, trying to use the entire. He said use the entire table, and I was like, dude, no one can even start to make this analogy. You're the only one who could even do this. You and Tony Gwynn, right? So it's like it was so normal for him. So it doesn't surprise me one bit. And I was there for his rookie year in 2019 when he became, the guy. I remember when someone got hurt in a 3-0 pitch or something, or a 0-2 pitch, and he had to come in and he worked an 11 pitch walk off an 0-2 count that wasn't his. And I was like, that day I was like, this guy's he's on another level when it comes to this stuff. And it's a kind of a player that's gone, those type of players aren't around as much. So it's a testament to the type of player he is, and he's just one of the best dudes ever. He's great teammates too, so he's really easy to root for. I love being able to root for the guys that I played with and have them be really, really great guys as well. Helps.
Yes, agreed. Yeah, you root for good dudes. And hey, he'll be presumably feeling better for the first half of next season and beyond with the Padres. The trade looks pretty good.
Another run at 400 for him.
Good for him. All right, so a couple other things. So for tomorrow's show, Tommy Canley will join us fresh off that ALCS Game 3 with the Yankees and the Guardians. So we'll see if he's happy or not. And then, I mean, probably pretty good chance he'll pitch in that game later.
He's always
well, if they lose, he might be like a little bit pissed. No,
stop. Tommy Canley.
He's a good flush it, shave the whole body.
Oh, no, he lives
a lot of energy. No matter what, he'll be an energetic.
A lot of energy, yeah.
He'll have a lot of energy.
I love his energy.
He lives in the fire.
Yeah.
He lives in the fire of just his sports choices and life.
We have some of the classics. Rowdy Tellez is on tomorrow, and he's actually been requested quite a bit, as you can imagine, Trevor. People want to hear from him coming off the end of his season, and then he was part of a trend there in Pittsburgh.
I will tune in for that one for sure. Yeah.
Yes.
What he has to say, because wow.
No matter what, that one's going to make some headlines. That's pretty much a guarantee. And then one more time for those in the back, we are promoting the watch party tomorrow because we don't do this often. It's cool to get the current big leaguers involved, and they're super excited about it. So we promise them we will continue to tell everyone where to go tomorrow night. Okay, wherever you are. If you're out, you still can access YouTube on your phone and just give it a little listen, car, whatever. And then, of course, if you're home, just run this. 8 o'clock Eastern time, Vinny Pasquantino and Brent Rooker are your hosts, your broadcasters for the ALCS Game 4 matchup of the Yankees and the Guardians. They'll bring on some friends. It'll be great. So make sure you tune into that. And then, of course, we're on. We'll promote it tomorrow, too. 1 to 3 Eastern tomorrow. Todd Father, I'll be there. Kratz will be on. Trevor, this was awesome, dude. Great to have you back on.
Great to be back, guys. I had a blast.
Yeah, us too. Enjoy the games because we don't have many days left with 2 games, right? I think 2 days left, today and tomorrow, and that's it.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's it. 2 more days of me. I'm getting a ton of food from 5 to 11 and just sitting there and watching balls. So I'm very excited about it. FT fam, enjoy the games. We'll see you tomorrow. We're back. 3-minute bonus for the YouTube fam because they get to eat first and last. So, Kratz, what do you got? And then I'll answer 1 or 2 questions.
Ooh. The Mama Juanas.
There's a lot going on there.
I love the colors. Big fan of the colors.
It's a Copa Diversión series. It's the Lehigh Valley Idom Pigs.
They got great hats. That gets an A for me. I like that one. I'm biased though. Blue hats make my eyes pop. So
humble brag.
Hey, you did that yesterday.
I did. Yeah, I wore a green hat, a leprechaun hat yesterday, and it made my green eyes go big.
All right. Before we lose all of our YouTube viewers, there was a few questions about pitches, like types of pitchers. So I'll just combine these for Trevor. Right. So Dylan said, "Do you see any knuckleball pitchers in the future? Or has it become a lost art?" I mean, we have one, Waldron, right? That's the only one.
He's the only,
yeah. So we do still have one. I guess he's just saying, like, will that, will we only just be a no or 1 or 2?
We won't have a knuckleball only guy, knuckleball fastball guy. It'll be like Waldron, like I can throw a knuckleball, but I can also throw 90, like the R.A. Dickey, like I'll throw a curveball every once in a while. Like that's just because you just can't quantify knuckleballs. They just can't, like you can't get active readings. So like analytics will never be like, go knuckleball. Like there's just no way. It'll just never be a good enough pitch design that they'll get excited about it just because they can't tell you why it's good. And that's sad.
Okay. So part of the arsenal, but can't be just the knuckleball.
It'll never be the number one thing, no.
Okay. And then Dylan said, will we ever see a submarine throwing knuckleball, screwball, sweeper pitcher?
Wait, he's going to have all those pitches?
I don't know if he was saying that or just, I mean, I guess that's what he's saying.
So the crazy creative player on the show that everyone makes at least once, the submarine or knuckleballer. Yeah, I don't even know how you can throw a knuckleball submarine. I think
I don't think you can because you really have to. Yeah, you really have to stay behind a knuckleball.
Yeah,
it's hard to stay behind something that you're pushing.
Yeah,
be neat.
But no,
Yeah, try and create it. Create it first, or you can do the AI thing, like make a little animation of it and show it to us, and then that's basically all you're gonna get. Yeah. It's weird, but this was great.
Trevor will have a seizure trying to figure that out. He'll be like, I can't.
Not possible. Malfunction. All right, now we're done. Thanks, YouTube fam. We'll see everyone tomorrow.